My name is Jacob Nash, and I am a female-to-male transgender individual. All of my life, I knew that there was something different about me. My mom used to tell me, march to the beat of your own drummer. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. You be you. And so, all in my childhood and growing up, I sensed that I did not belong in the body that I was assigned at birth, but I didn't know how to talk about that. I didn't know what that was. And so, growing up, I had to trust in what the Bible said, trust in what God said. And one of the scriptures that really struck me was from Jeremiah. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans for a hope and a future." So that's what I hung on to. Even though I had my tough times, I dealt with depression, I tried to commit suicide because I didn't like who I was, because I didn't know who I was until much later. When I started my transition at 33, the only person that I knew that I could rely on was God. He was my constant. In Proverbs it says to trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand why I was born the way that I was born, but I knew that there was a purpose for it. I knew that God could use me. So I continued to trust Him. I continued to rely on Him even when the days got turbulent, even when there was windy and stormy days. I knew that God was the only way that I could survive. He has been my foundation. You know, in Corinthians it says, I am a new creation in Christ. The old has gone and the new has come. And that is so true for me as a transgender individual. I am a very proud transgender person because I know that God is the foundation of everything that I am, everything that I believe in, and everything that exists around me. Without my faith in God, without my relationship with God, I would not be here today. So as we celebrate National Coming Out Day, be you. Trust in God. Know that you are a new creation and that He wants to prosper you and not to harm you. So rely on Him. Thank you for this great opportunity to be part of this video. Growing up at First Baptist Church, I learned so many things, and that was the grounding for my faith. And so I find it amazing that I can come back and share my story, even though I don't live in Massachusetts anymore. I feel I am still part of the family. Thank you.
Good morning, FBC. I'm Colton Cox, about a 3-year member here at church. And when asked to share my coming out story, my first reaction was, well, I hope we have a long time because it's a long story. Yet it's short at the same time, especially in a spiritual sense. But I came out when I was about 19 years old during my first year of undergrad, which was a small Christian more conservative school in the Midwest. At first I came out to friends who I kind of knew would be more accepting and more loving. And then I slowly came out to family and other friends that may not have been. And because of a negative relative coming out experience, I did actually go back in the closet after about 6 or 7 months. And then it was a slow coming out again. So I actually came out twice. But I've had, just like everybody else, lots of ups and downs, and it hasn't always been the best experience, but I do not wish for any other situation. Both my husband Dan and I have had loving and supporting family along the way, and people with different views and opinions, but despite all that, we've kind of had to find our own faith and surround ourselves with people who shared the same values and the same opinions, same belief system. And it's actually taken us a while to find a church just like FBC who's more open and accepting and may have different theological views than what we were brought up with, which is what we needed in our life. I don't think without a family like FBC we would be who we are to even this day. So we thank you for our church family, but we also are hoping to help others that may not share the same experiences we have. And so by attending and surrounding ourselves with people like FBC, we know that we can help be leaders or at least family to those who may not have a family yet. So my coming out experience, though as short as this story may seem, my hopes and dreams are to help others who may not share the same experience and also be examples, but also reflecting God's love on this earth.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Carlo, and I'm hoping just to share a little bit about my coming out story with you all today. I came out at the age of 21 to my parents, having grown up in a pretty conservative Christian household. I was attending a private Christian college, and the day after I broke the news to my parents, they actually drove to campus to see me. Funny enough, I actually came out because I had been dating someone and things were looking to be pretty serious. So for the first time in my life, I found like I feel like I had found someone that I could really see myself being with. And funny enough, that person is now my husband. They were very accepting, and I was really fortunate to not have really any concerns about being disowned or kicked out or anything like that. But even though it felt good to come out to them, the next few years were pretty challenging. They had a lot of questions for me, and I had a lot of questions to answer for them, and I almost had to rework or spend a lot of time reworking my relationship with my parents and my family and my friends, and definitely with God. It was tough to re-envision God's view of me and my relationship. And even now, there's always that little voice in the back of your head that makes you recall what people told you so many years ago. Fortunately, since living here in Massachusetts, in more recent years, I've been really blessed to have my FBC church family. Attending FBC and being part of such a vibrant and diverse church family has definitely opened my eyes to the depth of God's love for his children. And I really do feel like every time I walk through the doors of the church, or now in the current climate, sign into that Zoom, I do feel that God's love is so tangible through the relationships that I have with so many people at FBC.
My name is Nicole Morris Clark, and I'm married to the love of my life, with whom I share a beautiful daughter. I was asked to talk about my coming out story. I spent over half my life in the closet, and I find that I've never really stopped coming out. It seems that being anything counter to societal expectations means that we end up coming out to everyone we meet, even if it's just in passing, especially now that we have a baby. At my age, the story is a long one, so I have decided to give an overview with a focus on a specific Jennifer Knapp-related anecdote, since she is our guest today. I became a Christian when I was 19. I already knew that I was gay, and I knew that it was not accepted at the church that I had started attending. I accepted Christ anyway, and I have never regretted that. During my time at this Southern Baptist church, I dated a guy on and off for 3 years. He and I attended a Jennifer Knapp concert together, and I wore out my Kansas tape after that. It still remains a fond memory. I cared for him, but could not commit because I was too busy trying to suppress a whole part of myself. I was also quite romantically attached to my straight Christian female best friend. A typical trope, I know. I'm not very original. Finally, I ended it with him and moved away for college. Far from home, I lived out of the closet and tried to find my way on my own. I went through a process of healing, It began with a phase of thinking that perhaps I had been abused as a child, and that was what was wrong with me. Then a phase where I believed I had mental illness, and as such, I could choose to live my life in sin, but should not expect to be treated like a normal person who deserved to have equal marriage rights, etc. Lastly, I came to understand that I was made in God's image, and God makes no mistakes. With that revelation, I began to believe I deserved to be treated with respect and valued like any other human being. It was later that I came out to my family, and that is another story. Years later, I spoke with my ex again, and was able to tell him the truth about why things never worked out between us. He was justifiably upset that I hadn't been honest with him in the past, and confused about how I could be gay and Christian. I did my best to explain it, but he left the conversation feeling bitter. Jennifer Knapp had disappeared from the music scene for several years, and at this point in my story, returned with a story of her own. I talked to my ex again, and he told me that he went to a Jennifer Knapp concert at a small venue and was able to speak with her after she played. He asked her how she could be gay and Christian. He told her about me and that he didn't understand. I don't know exactly what was said that night, but whatever Jennifer shared with him changed his heart. He told me that he couldn't relate, but he could better understand what I was going through. He was no longer angry with me, and he became an ally because Jennifer bravely ventured back to tell her story. Thank you, Jennifer.